You want me to talk about how I got interested in the law? Let's rewind it back a little bit and talk about what law is in the first place. The word law refers to a group of rules decided by a particular nation meant to keep the peace and provide society with freedom from danger. In short, laws are the rules of a nation to keep peace and yield society security. Long or short, we aren't talking about mall cops. Our laws begin with the Constitution, a source of federal law that took almost 4 months to write, down to state laws, and then local laws for counties, cities, and townships. Laws range from the obvious, like battery, which keeps you free from violent or offensive physical contact, to absurd laws, like one in Arkansas, which makes it illegal for a pinball machine to award more than 25 free games to a player. See Arkansas Code Section 5-66-111. When your activity or your conduct breaks a law, it is illegal, and when you do things that are illegal, you end up needing a lawyer. But how do we get here? I mean, how did this all come to be? Laws have been around a long time. In fact, laws are closely tied to the development of civilizations. Ancient Egypt had laws back in 3000 BC. Babylonian laws date back to 1760 BC. Even the Torah from the Old Testament is a body of laws from 1280 BC. But lucky for us, laws can and do change. Otherwise, modern-day doctors couldn't charge more than 5 shekels to heal someone's broken bone, and a lot less of our best and brightest would be headed to medical school year after year. That's a real law from Babylonian times. See, doctors, we got your back. But enough about doctors, we're talking about advocates, attorneys, barristers, canonists, counselors, solicitors, and more. All of these are synonyms for lawyer or attorney, and 1 or 2 of you out there are probably thinking of even more words that are synonyms for lawyers. We'll get to that, I promise. But what is a lawyer? What do lawyers do? Lawyers offer advice to people about their rights and duties. Lawyers can represent their clients in court, although the truth is that most lawyers never see the inside of a courtroom. Lawyers apply abstract legal theories to solve specific problems. Depending on the jurisdiction and the type of law, the job a lawyer does can vary greatly. Since 1927, when Williams H. Waste was issued California Bar License Number 1, over 332,000 people have been licensed to practice law. In California alone. In fact, California has about 190,000 active attorneys right now. If you're keeping score, that's more than enough to fill an NBA arena like the Staples Center where my beloved Lakers play, COVID times excluded, 9 times. In the early days, long before the Staples Center, like the 17th century, legal proceedings were far more informal. Judges often just spoke directly with the people involved. Most people represented themselves for better or for worse. To get rid of the worst, people began to hire professional lawyers. By 1760, you needed a trained lawyer to win. For procedure, to cite precedent, and to fight off the other lawyer, you need a lawyer of your own. Almost immediately, hiring the wrong lawyer became a costly mistake, so having a smart and well-trained lawyer became a must. By the 18th and 19th centuries, becoming a lawyer was done by apprenticeship in the office of an established attorney. Apprenticeship learning favored nepotism, which eventually led to the creation of Litchfield Law School in Connecticut, the first law school in America. In its 49 years in operation, over 1,000 lawyers were trained there, and the Litchfield Law alumni include the 7th president, John C. Calhoun, and the villain in your history books himself, and the 3rd vice president, Aaron Burr. Most famous for killing fellow lawyer Alexander Hamilton, but I digress. By the 1860s, it was common for universities to have their own law schools, and by the mid-19th century, there were well over 100 law schools across the United States. Harvard, for example, founded its law school in 1817 and invented the case system, an approach of learning specific cases in order to think or reason like judges. More than 200 years later, the case system is still being used today to introduce legal rules to law students. They used it on me. I remember it from law school. Unfortunately, however, lawyers forget a lot after leaving law school. Some forget the laws, some forget the ethics, some forget both. And when lawyers forget, complaints begin. Complaints about lawyers go back just about as far as bar associations. People back in the 1840s complained that there were too many lawyers, and we still hear this complaint today. Scandals like Watergate and public rebuke of certain trials has only eroded the public trust in lawyers. Lawyer jokes have grown in number, but unfortunately not necessarily in comedic value. What can a goose do, a duck can't, and a lawyer should? Stick his bill up his Seriously, that's about as good as it gets. Lawyers became seen as circumventors of the law and legal guns for hire. People complained of deception, misappropriation of money, frivolous arguments, false evidence, procrastination, and of course, excessive fees. And the harsh criticism of lawyers doesn't go unnoticed. Some studies estimate suicide rates for lawyers as 6 times the average. Most believe it's the public's awful opinion of lawyers coupled with the lawyer's own ideals of justice, which, when denied in practice, lead to an increase in depression among lawyers generally. In fact, lawyers are twice as likely as average to suffer from addiction to alcohol or other drugs. Statistics also confirm the public's low opinion of lawyers. In a list of 15 professions ranked based on high honesty and ethical standards, lawyers finished 13th. Not third from the top, third from the bottom. It's hard to believe the lawyers we think so low of play such a big part in our society. Historically, lawyers have done a lot more than just fight it out in court. Lawyers have been making major impacts on America since the start. 45% of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were lawyers. 69% of the 45 members of the Constitutional Convention, lawyers. 40% of the 25 senators in the new Congress opened in 1789, lawyers. And 26% of the 65 representatives in the House, that's right, they were lawyers. In the earliest American government, if you weren't a lawyer, the person you were speaking to probably was. Like any profession, however, different lawyers have different skills. Of course, some skills, however, are universal among the best lawyers. We can start with listening. For the most part, lawyers are skillful and willing listeners. With open ears, lawyers seek to understand your problem so they can help solve it. Once they understand your problem, they have to be able to explain it. Explanations are done in letters making demands or motions before the court. For these reasons, lawyers need excellent writing skills. Don't be fooled by what the television shows you as lawyering. The vast majority of lawyers spend far more time in their offices writing than they spend in any courtroom talking. The ability to create meaningful arguments supported by the evidence in a compelling narrative is a skill seldom adequately considered. But strong listening and excellent writing aren't enough. Lawyers have to be passionate about their work. The passionate lawyer tends to be happier, perform better, and be more fulfilled. From this happiness stems the lawyer's compassion toward their clients. Many clients believe the more strongly committed lawyer will have a greater likelihood of finding meaning in their problem and success with their dispute. And I think they're right. So how did I get interested in law? I wanted to make an impact. I like to help people. In college, even back in high school, I was more likely to be the guy dealing with the police, telling them everything was under control, than I was to be the drunk guy puking at the side of the curb at that very same party. To some people, it might be control. To me, however, it's something else. To me, we have the greatest system in the world. I'm often reminded of the sacrifice my parents made just so I could be an American, and so I made my own sacrifices to be a part, even if just a small part, of the legal system of that very country my parents risked so much to be a part of. When people complain about jury duty, I congratulate them. I do. Seriously. I congratulate them on being selected to be a part of one of, if not the, greatest legal system on the planet Earth. Back in 2004, after putting in some serious work, I took an oath. I took an oath to support the Constitution of the United States. I promised to support the Constitution of the great state of California and promised to act as an attorney to the best of my knowledge and ability. As an officer of the court, I agreed to work to conduct myself with dignity, courtesy, and integrity. I took this oath in 2004, and I work every day to live up to it.